rollers, sucker busters, roller coasters, stone rollers, cosmic rays, like dance for a giant. They all try to get up ahead of Bailey's Comets, whether by hook or by crook. There's a rock and rollers, boomer girls, a roller bears, who want the prize, the mystery of the O's, and almost everyone realized they're all.
In 1973, one cartoon set out to do the impossible. Take the beloved formula of Hanna-Barbera's Wacky races and crank it up to 11. Imagine a global race, not with cars, but with roller skating teams. It didn't just have a couple of dozen characters, it had a massive, sprawling roster. And the prize wasn't some token trophy, but a life-changing $1 million. Now on paper, it was one of the most ambitious concepts of the Saturday morning cartoon era. In reality, it was a show that stumbled so hard, it vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. This is the story of Bailey's Comets, a show that aimed for the stars but crashed and burned after just one season. The show was called Bailey's Comets, and it came from Patty Freeland, the celebrated studio behind the Pink Panther. The premise felt both simple and epic. 10 roller skating teams from around the world were locked in a wild, perpetual race, hunting for clues that would lead them to $1 million fortune. The heroes were the titular Comets, a clean-cut group of teens led by Barnaby Bailey. They were the good guys in a world of chaotic rivals, from the spooky Broomer Girls on wheeled broomsticks to the rough-and-tumble Texas Rollers. Every episode dropped them into a new leg of the race in an exotic location, like the Australian Alps or the Amazon jungle. It seemed to have all the ingredients for a smash hit. So why is it a forgotten relic? A show so obscure it's never gotten an official home video release? The answer is a story of misguided ambition, a production that spiraled out of control, and a network that had zero patience for failure. To understand Bailey's Comets, you first have to understand the massive shadow cast by Wacky races. When Hanna-Barbera debuted that series in 1968, they created a phenomenon. The show was a masterclass in ensemble comedy and chaotic action, and it was so successful that it spawned popular spin-offs, proving the formula was a gold mine. In the world of Saturday morning cartoons, success breeds imitation, and by the early 70s, every studio wanted its own Wacky races. Enter Patty Freeland Enterprises. Fresh off the success of the Pink Panther, the studio was a major player, but it was still looking for a flagship show to rival Hanna-Barbera's output. The project that landed on their desk was Bailey's Comets, and it came from two men who knew the Hanna-Barbera formula better than anyone: Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. The duo, already famous for creating the immortal Scooby-Doo a few years earlier, were tasked with bringing this new vision to life. Their idea was to take the core concept of Wacky races, a large cast of bizarre competitors in a never-ending race, and just make it more. Instead of cars, they'd use roller skates to tap into the era's roller derby craze. Instead of a cross-country race, it'd be a global treasure hunt. The network for this bold venture was CBS, which aired the show during an era when the legendary Fred Silverman was head of programming. On paper, it must have seemed like a slam dunk. You had a hot studio paired with writers from the Hanna-Barbera hit factory, all working on a concept that was a supersized version of a proven success. The show was given a prime slot on the coveted Saturday morning block, debuting in September of 1973. The stage was set for Bailey's Comets to be the next big great animated adventure. But behind the scenes, that ambition was already becoming a catastrophe. The core problem with Bailey's Comets can be traced right back to its biggest selling point: the enormous cast. Having a huge roster of skaters sounded epic in a pitch meeting, but it was, in the words of animator and storyboard artist Art Leonardi, a nightmare to actually animate. Why? Because the characters were always skating. In a show like Scooby-Doo, characters could stand around and talk, which allowed for static shots and money-saving limited animation. But on Bailey's Comets, everyone had to be in constant motion to sell the illusion of skating, and the backgrounds had to be perpetually scrolling behind them. This created a staggering amount of extra work.
Here they come, skating fans! Our roller derby team's racing across Scotland in search of the next clue to the $1 million prize.
The sheer volume of it all pushed the Patty Freeland studio to its limits. The production pressures were so immense that the show reportedly became a serious financial burden for the studio. This chaos on the production side had a direct impact on the quality of the show. With so many characters to juggle, none of them got any real development. The supposed heroes, Bailey's Comets, were criticized by some viewers for being bland and generic. The rival teams were often just one-note gimmicks, like the Rockin' Rollers, a band on skates, or the Stone Rollers, a team of cavemen. Unlike Wacky Races, where characters like Dick Dastardly and Penelope Pitstop became icons, not a single character in Bailey's Comets really broke through and became memorable. The result was a show that some animation critics have since described as a second-rate rip-off of Wacky Races. The action often felt flat and repetitive, and despite featuring legendary voice talents like Don Messick and Dawes Butler, many felt the performances couldn't save the paper-thin characters. Viewers were left with a show that was visually chaotic but emotionally empty. It was a whirlwind of movement without any real purpose or charm, and audiences definitely noticed. When Bailey's Comets debuted in September 1973, it landed with a thud. The show failed to capture a large audience. The very kids who loved the fast-paced zaniness of Wacky Races just weren't tuning in. The convoluted premise and forgettable characters couldn't find a foothold in the competitive Saturday morning landscape. And for CBS, the weak performance was unacceptable. The network, under the watch of programming chief Fred Silverman, a man not known for his patience, made a swift and fatal decision. After just a few months on the air, CBS pulled Bailey's Comets from its prominent Saturday morning schedule and exiled it to Sunday mornings. For a cartoon in that era, this was a graveyard slot, a clear signal that the network had given up. The show limped through its first and only season of original content, producing a total of 32 episodes, but its fate was already sealed. When the 1974-75 television season began, CBS aired a second season composed entirely of reruns, a common practice to fulfill contractual obligations for a cancelled show. That epic million-dollar treasure hunt that formed the entire premise of the series, it was never resolved. The race just stopped. The show was officially cancelled without fanfare, vanishing from the airwaves as if it had never been. The costly production of Comets was a humbling experience for DePatie Freeling. In the wake of the show's troubles, other rumored projects at the studio, like a planned animated series based on stuntman Evel Knievel, never made it to the screen. In the end, Bailey's Comets is a classic case study in how more isn't always better. Where Wacky Races succeeded with a manageable cast of charming characters, Bailey Comets collapsed under the weight of its own ambition, offering a bloated roster of skaters who were hard to tell apart and even harder to care about. The show's creators mistook quantity for quality, leading to a production headache and a creatively thin final product. Its failure was so total that it left virtually no cultural footprint. You'd be hard-pressed to find any official merchandise or comic books. Today, the show is mostly a ghost in animation history, kept alive through bootleg recordings shared in the corners of the internet. To this day, it has never received a widespread official DVD or streaming release. So while Wacky Races remains a timeless classic, beloved for its simple but effective charm, Bailey's Comets serves as a forgotten footnote. It's a cautionary tale about chasing a trend without understanding what made it work in the first place. It was a show that promised a race around the world for $1 million prize, but in the end, it couldn't even make it past the first lap.